Welcome to the Mystic Media channel. I'm your host, Rabina Rastaban, aka the Realist Astrologer. And tonight I am getting into Jill Scott's natal chart. So, in the wake of the recent news regarding Jill Scott's filing for divorce, I decided to take a look at her natal chart to see if the claims made by her husband, or soon-to-be ex-husband, could be valid. So before I get into her chart, I'm just going to read a little bit from TMZ as well as gossip.com regarding this situation. So according to TMZ, Jill Scott is pulling the plug on her marriage after less than 18 months and says it would be unsafe for her to continue living with her husband. Jill and Mike Dobson got married in June 2016, but in her divorce docs obtained by TMZ, she cites inappropriate marital conduct, that such further cohabitation would be unsafe and improper. She also cites irreconcilable differences. According to docs first reported by Gossip, the singer says they've been separated and living in separate homes since September 5th. Jill also says they have a prenup and she wants it enforced. The couple did not have any kids together. So let me read what her husband is saying about this situation. Dobson exclusively told Gossip.com that he was blindsided by the divorce filing. He also said, "She's an evil woman, I'm telling you. It's like what Jill Scott wants, Jill Scott gets. People are in her ear, and if someone comes in to challenge the dumb shit, they made me be the bad guy, and that got me out of there. She's got issues. There's no men in that family. There's only women. And when a man comes in, it's like a challenge." He goes on to say, "She's made other men look bad, but I'm not the one. I said to her, you've met your match. She likes to have men that she can control. You're not going to control me. What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. I told her she's from Philly, but I'm from New York. And if you want to try to disgrace me, try to slander me, I could fight dirty." Hell yeah, those New York niggas is grimy. So let me stop. But no, Philly could be grimy too. So you got a person from Philly, you got a person from New York, and they are at each other's throats right now, so this could get quite messy. So let me just get into her natal chart. So Jill Scott was born on April 4th, 1972 in Philadelphia, PA at 11:43 a.m. Her birth number being 4 can make her quite friendly, very sociable and engaging, but also very willful. And she's prone to be like a dictator at times. Now, her life path number is 27. That breaks down to 9. That reinforces her Aries energy. She has a stellium in Aries consisting of Sun, Chiron, and Mercury. So that makes her a hardcore Aries, in my opinion, especially with her Sun conjoined to Chiron, because that can make her quite uncompromising when it comes to what she wants. So just like her soon-to-be ex-husband said, what Jill Scott wants, Jill Scott gets. And if you know anything about Aries, and Aries women in particular, they are basically natural bosses. They do not really take kindly to being in positions of submission. They like to be in charge, even in their marriages. So already right off the bat, just seeing that her birth number is 4, life path number is 9. She has that stellium in Aries, Sun conjoined to Chiron. That alone supports what he's saying. But let me move on. So she's a Cancer rising, so that deals with her being the BBW, big beautiful woman. Also, she has those big boobs, which is very indicative of Cancer rising. And just think about how in some of her songs she sings about food, like that song, "Is It the Way?" I love Jill Scott, by the way, in terms of her music. So, yeah, but think about that song, "Is It the Way?" where she was like, "Made me some breakfast, toast, 2 scrambled eggs, grits, grab my keys, grab my purse." But yeah, and then she had that other song where she was like, "Do you want it on your collard green?" But yeah, she always sing about food. But that's very much Cancer rising. Her moon is in Sagittarius, so that reinforces the issues with her weight. So that can make that combination, moon and Sagittarius with Cancer rising, can produce a big, beautiful woman. And she has a stellium in Gemini consisting of Venus, Mars, and Saturn. So that stellium in Gemini can make her switch up. So that can point to her having two agendas, or where, she has two personas in terms of relationships, because Venus is included in the mix. And that Venus, Mars, and Saturn stellium, that's related to her marriage. So I'm going to get into that in a minute. So, like I said, with her moon at the 19th degree of Sagittarius, that gives her like a goddess complex. It can make her quite a diva, and it reinforces the issues with her weight, like I said. So just taking all that into account, she is not a weak woman in the least bit. She's a boss, and she is not one to submit to anyone, including a husband. Now her sun is conjoined to Chiron and it's opposing Uranus. That can make her quite dictatorial. Basically, just like he said, what she wants, she gets, and that can make her quite uncompromising, even when we're talking about men. That sun conjoined to Chiron opposition Uranus can also deal with her objectifying men. So basically what I mean by that is, it's like she'll pick a man out and she's like, okay, I don't care if he's broken down or, he got some issues with him. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take him and rebuild him and fashion him up to the man that I want him to be. And he's going to be she wants a man to be almost like her robot. So where she like builds him, designs him or whatever to her specifications, and then she has what she wants at the end of the day. But obviously this didn't work with Mike Dobson or her first husband. She also has Sun semi-square Venus. That can point to her being very willful in relationships. And also because Venus is in Gemini, that can deal with her having a second agenda. She has Sun square Jupiter in Capricorn. That can make someone excessively willful, excessively controlling, because Jupiter is in Capricorn. So she has this thing with her where it goes back to having like that goddess complex, because Jupiter deals with the God complex, just like Moon in Sagittarius does. So it's like she wants to be this creator of everything. She wants to be in control of everything, but in the process, she'll make a mess of things because of that square. She also has Mercury square Jupiter as well. Now, back to Sun square Jupiter and Mercury square Jupiter. Jupiter is conjoined to the fixed star Fasces, which can make somebody quite ruthless, and it could cause someone to be blind to their own folly. Now, she has Sun trine Moon, so a lot of times that's an aspect that can produce a happy marriage. So why does she have these challenges with men? Well, it deals with a lot of what I already discussed with that stellium and Aries, Sun conjoined to Chiron. And also, the Moon rules her Cancer ascendant, and the Sun is co-ruler of her first house because Leo starts at her first house. And then the Sun also rules her second house. So this positive energy that comes from the Sun trine Moon aspect is not really geared towards her relationships. That energy is reserved for her persona and her money. She also has her Moon in parallel to the fixed star Antares, which can deal with having several marriages. It can bring son-in-laws. It can make one quite stubborn. And it can deal with you being very suspicious. And also it can make you prone to violence. Her ascendant is conjoined to Procyon. It's a fixed star that deals with short-lived opportunities. So it's where she can meet with quick success, but it's followed by disaster. So that can explain her trying to be a wife, because Cancer deals with being a wife. Mercury is retrograde, and it's in square to Jupiter in Capricorn. Like I said, that's very much similar to her Sun square Jupiter aspect. And again, that's her wanting to will control, wanting to be like the director where, she's directing everything that happens in her life so that she can always maintain control. And that controlling way gets out of hand because Jupiter deals with excess. Jupiter enlarges things. Her Mars, Saturn, and Venus in Gemini are opposing Neptune and Sagittarius. So again, that points to this hidden agenda that she has, where she may not be upfront when she gets into a marriage about really what she has in store for the man. So she's liable to switch up once she gets that man. So I'm looking at this configuration, Mars, Saturn, and Venus in Gemini opposing Neptune and Sagittarius, as it's like she's creating a model of a man, or she lures a man in, and once she has him, that's when like she traps him. And then she's like, okay, now some things got to change around here, that type of thing. Her 7th house, which deals with her marriage, 25 degrees Capricorn is on the 7th house cusp. That is not conducive to a happy marriage. And it could point to some form of deception going on because of the 25th degree. Now her Saturn, which rules her 7th house, is at the 3rd degree of Gemini and is conjoined to Mars and Venus. So that's where that stellium in Gemini comes in relation to her marriage. So that's like what I said, like she'll attract a man and it looks like she doesn't have any problem getting men. But once she gets that man, it's like, boom, you're mine now. I'm locking you down and now you're under my rule. You're under my authority. Her Venus is in contra parallel to the asteroid Icarus, which could deal with taking foolish risks with relationships. Her Mars is in parallel to Panacea. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Her Panacea is conjoined to the ascendant. Keep that in mind. I'm going to go back to that. Now, what's really important about this all is her lunar nodes. And as you know, I'm always harping on the lunar nodes because that will tell you a lot about a person, about the wherefores and whys of the challenges that they're going through. So her south node is at the 1st degree of Leo and it's in her 1st house. So that produces someone that could be very willful, that could be very domineering, and it's a person that they want to experience love. They want to be in a romance. However, that is not what they're supposed to be doing in this lifetime. So by Jill Scott falling in love with these men or trying to create love, in my opinion, she's forcing love, where it's like the love's not even there in the beginning, but she's forcing it. Like I said, she's trying to rebuild a man to her specifications and then putting the stamp of love on it and then basically trying to make it work that way. Well, it will never work that way. With that south node at the 1st degree of Leo in the 1st house, that's pointing to she has karma with men. Starting with her father, more than likely. Now, that's going to make her north node at the 1st degree of Aquarius in the 7th house. So, that right there shows that she's not really geared for marriage. If she gets married, there's a good chance she's going to get divorced and divorced quickly, which is exactly what happened in this situation. She's only been married to this man for 18 months. So that north node at the 1st degree of Aquarius in the 7th house points to that right there. It can deal with a quick marriage followed by a quick divorce. Now, back to what I said about her trapping men. The Arabic part of bondage is opposed to her Jupiter in Capricorn. And the part of servants is conjoined to her Mercury in Gemini. And the part of imprisonment is opposed to Mars and is conjoined to Neptune. So remember what I said about Saturn ruling her 7th house. Saturn is conjoined to Mars. And Mars is in that stellium with Saturn, Mars, Venus is opposing Neptune. I hope I'm not losing people on this because it's kind of extensive. But it's opposing Mars. It's conjoined to Neptune, the part of imprisonment. So that's exactly what I see going on. Like, she will get with a man, she'll lure him in, she traps him, and then she tries to make him into like her own little puppet. Now, she has a grand air trine consisting of Venus, Mars, Saturn, Pluto, and the North Node. Now, people with grand trines could be very talented, but there's always a underside to that. Like, there's always a dark side to the grand trine. Because with grand trines, that means the person is largely self-contained, meaning like they really don't need people. But they can also be very difficult to deal with because it's like people with grand trines, again, like I said, they're self-contained. So they really don't like anybody coming in and messing up or disturbing their equilibrium or messing up what they got going on. So to me, that speaks very much about what her husband is saying about her being very controlling, her trying to dominate men and emasculate men. So I'm definitely seeing that with her. So she has a lot of masculine energy in her chart. That Cancer ascendant does balance the masculine energy out to some degree, but it's no match for that Aries energy, especially where her sun conjoined to Chiron. And then it was reported that her ex-husband started refusing to eat her food. And I started looking at her chart specifically to look at that. And I was seeing like indicators of that possibly being true in terms of husband being suspicious of her cooking food, like that she might be putting something in food. That's what it seems like what the guy was getting at by not eating her cooking. And Jill Scott got greatly offended by that, her being a Cancer rising. I'm not surprised. However, like I said, I was looking in to see what type of indicators would show where her husband could possibly be afraid to eat her food. So again, going back to that asteroid Panacea, it's in parallel to her Mars, and it's I believe it was conjoined to her ascendant. Now Cancer deals with food, it can deal with cooking. And then that Mars parallel Panacea, that Mars can deal with actions, what she's doing, her intentions. So Panacea is at the 25th degree of Cancer. 25 could deal with deception. With her Jupiter being in the 6th house, which can also deal with cooking, and it's conjoined to the asteroid Hidalgo, I'm thinking that she might, be into a little witchcraft. Of course, it's a speculation on my part, but I wouldn't be surprised. With all the stuff she got going on in her chart, the fact that she has to be in control of every situation in her life, that Sun square Jupiter, Mercury square Jupiter means that she could go overboard with the control. I wouldn't put it past her that she may resort to putting some things in a man's food in order to get him to act right, in order to get him to acquiesce, in order to bond him to her. And remember, I said the Arabic part of bondage is opposed to Jupiter. And remember, I said Jupiter is in her 6th house. And look, that part of bondage is at the 6th degree of Cancer. Again, the food situation. And that would be in her 12th house, which could deal with magic, which could deal with spells. Now, if anybody thinks that the speculation is outlandish, I'm here to tell you that this is very common nowadays. It was very common back in the day, like at the turn of the century, when people were like heavily into hoodoo and things like that. But it's had a resurgence over the years. So now a lot of people, in particular women, are resorting to doing spells, casting spells in order to lock men down or get men to do their bidding or what have you. So I would not put it past Jill Scott to be of this type where she would engage in magic spells in order to lock a man down. And one of the ways you could do that is by putting things in a man's food. Putting period blood in a man's food in particular can cause a man to be bonded to you for a very long time. Sometimes it could be for life, and sometimes it could just make the man go crazy. So again, this is speculation on my part, but I feel like the signs are there, the indicators are there, and basically Jill Scott is nobody to mess with. She's a tough chick. She's from Philly. I used to live in Philly, so I know how them Philly chicks can be. A lot of Philly chicks are just naturally masculine because Philly is a tough city. So, you have to grow up with a tough persona in Philly. That's if you live in a hood. So, the fact that, she has nothing but women in her family, well, somebody has to play the role of the masculine or the males in that family. So it looked like she has, carried the torch in terms of the masculine energy in that family, her and maybe some other women in her family. But that's Jill Scott's chart. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment. If you would like a reading, you could go to my website at rabina.com. Stay tuned for more videos. Peace and many blessings.